Hi folks, just did a quick little video snippet about the Fabian Society. I don't know a whole lot about them, I've only found out about them recently, but to me there just seems to be something dark and sinister about the whole setup, especially when you've got the likes of Tony Blair, Sadiq Khan, Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves. There's a whole host of names, famous names, barons, baronesses. Don't seem to me that they're actually for the people, if you like. Anyway, look into it yourself. I'm still looking into it myself.
You must all know half a dozen people at least who are no use in this world, who are more trouble than they are worth. Just put them there and say, sir or madam, now will you be kind enough to justify your existence? If you can't justify your existence, if you're not pulling your weight in the social vote, if you're not producing as much as you consume, or perhaps a little more, then clearly we cannot use the big organization of our society for the purpose of keeping you alive, because your life does not benefit us and it can't be of very much use to yourself.
They're representing them and doing so alongside, in this instance, Kate Green. Can get that back on screen quickly, who is someone that Roger and I spoke about last week at some length, because she is currently today the Deputy Mayor of Greater Manchester for Policing and Crime. So she's overseeing the supposed reviews into the grooming gangs issue, whether in Oldham or further afield. Supposedly working for Andy Burnham, but I get the sense that she might be pulling his strings behind the scenes because, as I said, she's now today doing that job in Greater Manchester. Before that, she was the chair of the Fabian Society, which is something that Roger and I touched on in that interview last week. So from 2017 to 19, they have these 2-year terms that they do. Kate Green was the chair of the Fabian Society. Also on the executive committee, there are about 10 members of the exec committee. I've just pulled out 2 that I thought were of interest. Sarah Sackman, Labour MP, currently Minister for Courts and Legal Services, and actually from last year, from July onwards, she was the Solicitor General. So one of the top lawyers in the country. She's a Fabian. And also, importantly, Jim McMahon, who we spoke about last week, who was the leader of Oldham Council between 2011 and 2016, when much of the abuse that was described by Roger Meir was taking place. Yeah, so he essentially oversaw the cover-up of that abuse based on what was described to us in Roger's testimony last week. And he's then subsequently been elevated to the exec committee of the Fabian Society, as we can see here, and he's now a serving Minister of State. Yes, he's one of the top people in the government. He's the Minister of State for Housing, Communities, Local Government and English Devolution, importantly. So this is the guy who is rolling out the complete transformation of local government, implementation of the Metro Mayor system, which is a template for global governance. They're presenting it as devolution, but that's actually not what it is at all. It's just a distributed, centralised system where they're going to implement a completely new order, ultimately. And this man, Jim McMahon, who was intimately involved in the cover-up of systemic abuse, is the man responsible for implementing that new system of governance. Just think about that. Like, how is that happening? How can that possibly be acceptable to us as a nation, to allow people with this track record to be given that amount of power, right? And it is an extraordinary amount of power because we can see the influence that he's already having on the UK. So we're in a situation now where we've got council elections being cancelled, right? So we also have elections coming up in May this year. They're being cancelled. Obviously, this is just being positioned as a delay. So the BBC saying that these are going to be rescheduled. Yeah, but it's all part of a major redesign of local government, which
To talk about some issues that have become contentious and weighed heavily on our politics over recent years: immigration and integration. I do so not only because these issues are so fundamental to the story of my city and its continued success, but because they go to the heart of our values and who we are as a nation. The resurgence of far-right populism and nativism means that the idea that we can be diverse, united and prosperous is under threat like never before. The White House's national security strategy recently made the preposterous claim that Europe is at risk of civilization erasure. The far right is spreading the same message in Europe, with the National Rally in France, the AFD in Germany, the PVV in the Netherlands, and the Brothers of Italy. Over here, Reform and the Tories are dancing to the same tune. They paint a dystopian picture of London as a city that's fallen. And let's be frank, they do so because they can't stand what London represents. A city that's diverse, that's progressive and thriving, with a mayor who happens to be a Muslim. The fact
marks the third year that we have hosted this conference, and it represents only part of a wider record of collaboration between the City of London and the Fabian Society.
This isn't just a think tank scribbling pamphlets in a back room anymore, is it? This is an ideological network operating inside the machinery of state, finance and regulation. And then the Fabian General Secretary proudly confirms:
we've been shaping the future of the left since 1884, the incubator for some of the best ideas and some of the most transformative policies that have shaped our country, from the NHS to the minimum wage, and we've got really big plans for this year ahead.
Labour government will be different.
And so that's why I've concluded that he's got to go.